Business is made possible by our partners, Solar Dynamics, the most efficient energy systems.
Good evening and welcome to The People's Business. I'm Wendy Burke. This evening we're talking tourism. Yes, tourism, state of the industry. And to help us discuss exactly what state it is in are Mr. Ryan Forde, the Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association, and Mr. Mark Thompson, the Chairman of the Tourism Development Corporation, the TDC. Welcome, gentlemen, and welcome to you, our viewers here on The People's Business. When we come back, we'll get right into it. And we're back. Gentlemen, what state are we truly in? Are we balancing? Are we limping? Or are we way beyond the mountaintop? Where are we? I'll start with you, Mr. Forde.
Hi, good night, and good night to Barbados. Thank you very much for having us. I believe that we're on a good path, especially of growth. The agencies, we have started working together a lot more in regards to finding different forms of tourism. Obviously working on that and also trying to develop a full 12-month plan that incorporates local culture, heritage, sports, different types of tourism as mentioned, and also trying to get more summer traffic into the island. And that is the important thing that we're doing. The entire world coming out of the COVID lockdowns, we've put different strategies in place and the agencies are really on a good path, I would say.
And for you, Mr. Thompson, how do you rate it?
Yeah, I mean, good night to everyone. Good night, Wendy, and good night, Barbados. Yeah, I would think where we're at now, having come out of a difficult period, not only a difficult period for COVID, but also just before that, prolonged economic downturn. I think we're on a path that's going in the right direction.
Okay. Now, I'm glad that you mentioned summer, Mr. Forde, and the powers that be, the ministry and its main agency for marketing Barbados are looking at driving more summer traffic. Now, I guess the layman would be of the belief that we do see enough summer traffic because of crop over and the number of people who come for the festival. But what other markets are we looking to reach during this summer?
Yeah, so it's interesting that you mentioned that because we just wrapped up, for example, surfing and also hockey for the juniors. So that shows a kind of path towards sports tourism. And then, of course, you have multiple different actions that are being taken place in course of coming out to the U.S. You know, you have the Faber Fest that's coming off in early June, and that deals with historically black colleges of the United States. And they have 4 or 5 days of activity. That is before you even get into the main bulk of the crop over activity, which is really the July into the early August. And then you also have further sporting activities into August going into September with the Ninja Throwdown and whatnot. And these are the kind of activations that you really need in order to drive summer traffic. Because when you think about sports or the arts, you start from the time you're a young kid all the way up until masters, and there's also ladies and there's also men. So you are able to see that kind of travel in bulk, because these are either individuals or groups coming as teams. And then of course you have to compete against other teams. And then there's also spend, because there's food and beverage, there's taxis and shuttles, there's also audiovisual companies. Everyone is getting some form of participation and promoting what is good for Barbados.
Okay, now, Mr. Thompson, he speaks of promoting what is good for Barbados, but what about some of the other areas? What about cruising? Are we likely to be able to attract more cruising to this destination during the summer? Are we likely to be able to capture those areas that generally don't come to Barbados during the summer months?
Well, cruising. TDC is a very much a supporting organization to BTMI and BHTA. I mean, we are a private sector organization that, well, I would say philanthropic organization that try to give funds towards marketing and towards product enhancement. So we're not directly involved in, let's say, for instance, defining policy as it relates to tourism. However, in terms of, just to answer your question about cruising, I mean, we do have our members, and one of our members is fostering its cruise, and I know they're working on increasing the cruise presence throughout the summer. And I mean, in fact, they've been working quite hard to get cruise back to Barbados. I think the numbers, my understanding, numbers that would normally be, let's say, maybe about 700,000 or so, they're back up to like over 500,000. So I would say that's not a bad number.
Okay, and you said you put your money behind various initiatives. How do you all view the summer campaign, and how active will TDC be in that initiative?
Well, I mean, we are here to support. So if, let's say, BTMI, BHD, they come to us and they say, okay, this is something we want to do. We want to do this specifically. We want to do some marketing in this particular market, let's say, to enhance the amount of heads in beds, or to enhance people coming to Barbados and spend their funds. Yeah, we will look at it for sure.
Okay, now speaking of the heads in beds, I understand we would have had a good winter season. You know, now when we look at what has come out of winter, what are the projections like right now for your membership, Mr. Forde?
Projection in terms of which part of the year?
In terms of the summer? You've had a good winter, you've reported to us, so is summer going to be on par with winter?
Well, it's two different periods. As we know, winter, you know, you go from around the middle of December down to maybe middle of April, and you have that traditional tourist, so you're always going to get those high numbers. And as mentioned, we're going in a direction of positive growth towards getting that summer traffic as well as shoulder period, which we would consider those September, October into November and early December, by creating those multiple festivals. Now, we are probably at the very start of summer, so you will start to see those numbers start to pick up even further as we get closer and deeper into the summer. So the members, there are some members who are actually reporting fairly solid numbers, or they're forecasting that it will reach to that. And then there's some members who are obviously in the shoulder period. They're going through their refurbishments and upgrades and whatnot. And then you tend to get a lot more activity in the attractions and the restaurants, because summer school, there's no summer going on really in the school. There's no school going on in the summer. So when you have that, you get more local participation going to the attractions and going to the restaurants. And it becomes kind of a second kind of nightlife when you start to see that kind of traffic going through the attractions and the restaurants in the summer. It's kind of like a second wind.
Okay, and what about your membership, Mr. Thompson? What are their projections for summer?
Well, our members aren't typically all of them directly involved in tourism. Some of us, let's say, some of the members, let's say, would be like Barbados Light and Power, Goddard's, you know, K-Shoppers, those kind of things. That goes back to the origin of TDC in the first place, to get those who are not necessarily directly involved in tourism to give towards tourism in that way. But what I would say is that we do approve projects for funding, and we have seen an uptake in the projects coming to us. So let's say, for instance, the Sol Rally Barbados that let's say had been off for the last couple of years. That's back. That was back on, or that is back on, I should say. Masters football. There's a little small darts tournament that attracts about 100 persons for 2 weeks in Barbados. That's also back on. These things are very valuable. They will spend some time, let's say, in the Gap, especially after the darts, having fun and so forth, and staying at hotels in that area. So we've seen an uptick in requests for funding for projects.
Okay, most of these projects seem to be sports oriented at this point in time.
Well, some of them, we get a lot of requests for sports projects. That's true, but that's not the only thing that we do. Let's say, for instance, we've recently been involved in a few filmmaking projects. There's a local filmmaker here who's been doing, a local film, well supported by the NCF, and I would think it's a very good product. And they really want to put on a whole series of episodes for one season. And they've done a pilot project that looks good, and they're looking towards more funding for that. Now, we've helped with the Upstart funding. We're not going to be in there for the long haul, but we're certainly there to help with that. But other things we've done, the Joes River Bridge, for instance, which connects the Cattle Wash area to Bathsheba, we've helped to restore that. We're not the only ones that were involved, but we've helped to restore that. We've been involved, let's say, with the enhancing of security in Barbados for the police. That's in terms of them setting up their cameras on the South Coast, West Coast, and Bridgetown area. So there are many other things. We get involved in product enhancement as well.
And how do you feel overall about us as a destination with those elements? Do you think that given the lighting and because I remember before there was a lot of lighting on the boardwalk, we're not seeing that like before. So are the tourists really going to be able to immerse and get as involved as they want to be in Barbados, both during day and night?
You're talking about security in general.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, I certainly, we know that the cameras has definitely helped the police in terms of their tracking and be able to solve crimes. That we know. We know that. Security is definitely an important aspect of our tourism product, and we don't want that to be tarnished. Obviously there are things that happen that are out of your control, but we really have to be mindful of this. And I guess if we see things going on, we have to try our best there. But I don't think that let's say the boardwalk, for instance, lighting on the boardwalk, that's a delicate balance, because we also have like the turtles, and if you have the wrong lighting there, for instance, the turtles will come off the beach and then find them. Yeah, so it's always a delicate balance of security as well as lighting. That's just one area, but okay. I think security is okay at the moment.
All right.
We can always work to make that better.
All right, Mr. Forde, it's important for the visitors to be able to get here. Is BHCA at this point comfortable with airlift? And I think we started Panama because we're trying to reach out to our Latin American neighbors more. How do you feel about it?
Well, the reality is that the airlift has now started to pick up in comparison to obviously during the COVID lockdowns when planes were not traveling. And that is the reality. It's a situation going on around the world, and all of the entities are working very strong in order to improve and start new routes. You just mentioned one. Panama currently has two, and as you mentioned, they're looking at expanding and how we dive deeper into Latin America. The history between Barbados and Panama is very rich, it's very strong, and there's a very heritage and cultural connection. So it shows that there are those opportunities. And obviously the different directors in the source market, BTMI, who are more responsible to speak towards the airlift, they are the ones that we are supporting on the ground. We have new projects coming out, the attractions expanding. We have the Wyndham project coming on board in summer. We know that Indigo has just started construction. There are multiple other properties that are coming as well. And then as you see, when you drive along the coast or you go through St. Lawrence Gap, there's so much more nightlife and restaurants and whatnot. So being able to support the agencies while they drive towards that airlift is key. And there have been some other new companies coming around from the Air Antilles and into Caribbean and those different airlines that have been doing announcements a month and 2 months ago. And we have seen the work that is going on. Obviously, the world would love for everything to go back to 2019, but the work that we're going is trying to take us even further and beyond 2019. And that work has begun here at home across the different agencies.
Now, with the tourists coming, some people have already started a few complaints about the cost of airfare. Have you heard through the grapevine whether or not, given that we're looking to make Barbados a year-round destination, whether or not we will be seeing some specials being run for the summer?
No, I haven't heard anything through the grapevine.
Okay, well, let's hope that we start to hear that soon so the numbers can pick up. Now, the BHTA. Okay, we have a caller, so let's go to the caller before we go to break. Good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Wendy, to you or your panel.
Yes, go right ahead.
Right, with so much viruses and things around, and we went through a pandemic and had to wait 2 years to think, so then we be bidding for furniture industries and our food industries and things that everything so happen that we have something to fall back on instead of putting all our hopes in tourism.
Well, I don't know if they might be able to tell you where the rest of the eggs are being put because they're nesting on the ones within the tourism sector. So I'm not sure if they want to hazard a guess on that. But I do believe, though, Mr. Forde, that you're still working closely with the Ministry of Agriculture in the whole farm to table initiative to give our visitors access to our local foods and services.
Yeah, of course. One of our members, Walker's Reserve, the owner and the management company that operates, for example, Local and Co. down on the West Coast, they work with a lot of local suppliers, obviously down there in Spicetown, which is probably one of my favorite towns in itself. It's very beautiful and they connect well. So they're doing that in order to incorporate what the agriculture sector has and to show a little bit more of what the manufacturing sector also has and offer those products towards what the caller just mentioned. Mark and myself, obviously in the roles that we play, we have to go and tour different locations. So we would have been able to tour some of what Wyndham is bringing on board and like some of the newer projects that have come about. A lot of the art in the hotels are actually Barbadian art. If you go to places like the Crane, if you go to Hilton, if you go into the new Wyndham, the restaurants, if you're looking at Champers, a lot of Barbadian art is on the walls. There are also art dens that persons can sell to the tourists as well. So there is a huge opportunity. And one thing that we always forget is tourism isn't just a hotel, a restaurant, an airline. It actually deals with all of the connections. So how do you get from the airport to that hotel? There is a taxi. The taxi has to buy gas or diesel. So it goes back into two different industries already. When they're to be fed, there's either the distributors, there's the fishermen, there are the markets, there are also the fruit and veg. So there's a lot of linkages in the tourism industry. So when we speak about diversifying the economy, we must remember that, yes, one, we diversify the economy. Two, we need to diversify the type of tourism that we focus on. And three, how do we continue to keep those linkages between the industry? Because we don't want a situation where we run away like how decades and decades ago we may have focused from the rum or from the sugar and we try to go towards one. What we want to do is keep those connections strong and keep those linkages even stronger so that way when you build up a new industry or you expand, all of them are growing together.
Okay, we have to take a break here, gentlemen. When we come back, our call number is 228-5562, 228-5563. We'll be back after the break. Welcome back to the People's Business. We're discussing the state of the tourism industry. We have a caller on the line. Good evening to you. Go right ahead with your question.
Hello, good evening. Yeah, I want to first commend the tourism officials on the panel and the others. And I want to say that I find that we don't understand the importance in Barbados for the industry and how it's important to us, because when people talk about diversifying and only studying tourism, we have to recognize that tourism is very important. And as the president was saying, we need to strike that balance and understand that we can't do away with one and not the other, and that whatever is doing the basic foreign exchange for Barbados in a huge way, we have to focus on and build it. And right now, tourism is doing very well for the last 60 years in Barbados. Let's only forget the COVID that set us back a bit. So we have to keep and try and build it up as much as possible and don't pull it down. It's very important to the country, and many others are grabbing it and running with it. So we have to continue to build ours. We have a good brand.
What's your take on this, Mr. Thompson? He says we have a good brand, we have to continue to build on it. Do your players see it as an industry that they need to be contributing to constantly, even though not directly?
Absolutely. Just the fact that we've been around for 36 years. I mean, the reasons we got involved as an organization was exactly because of that, because American Airlines wanted to pull out of Barbados back in 1986, 87. And the companies of the day got together and helped out in that way, and that's how TDC was formed. So I mean, while we, it's always great to diversify the economy, that does not necessarily mean at the expense of tourism. You have to keep building tourism. Remember that, inherent in what I'm going to say is what he said. He said that we've been around for 60 years. So obviously our product is mature. So I think what we have to do now is, what's the next step? Where do we evolve to? And obviously the type of tourists that have been coming to us are probably a lot of baby boomers and so forth. And so we've got to now evolve from that. We've got some new product coming out on the market. The Wyndham for sure is a new product. We've got the Indigo Hotel coming up. We've got Hyatt happening. And I think as that happens, you're probably going to see, reworking, a further evolution of what we have as a tourism product. But Ryan did say earlier that we are tied into a lot of different things. So everything in general needs to evolve.
Now, Mr. Forde was speaking to the orange economy before we'd gone off. The other type of tourists I want to look at is the eco-tourists, and whether or not we're doing enough for them. A lot of people are, even though they have to travel by plane, what have you, they want that when they get to the destination, they're finding ways and activities to get involved in that can help them to reduce their carbon footprint. They're looking for those types of things to immerse themselves in. Are we really offering them enough?
Is that me or is that Ryan you're asking?
Either one can take it. Are we really offering the kind of product?
If you're talking product, that'd be down my avenue, because we're responsible for the product. What I would say is, we're never doing enough in anything. We always can do more. We're always about growth. What I would say, however, though, is that we've started to see more of the eco projects coming along. One I mentioned earlier was Walker's Reserve. I did a tour there sometime last summer, and they while I got there for the tour, I saw that they had different individuals, from tourist individuals that are actually spending 3 to 6 weeks here doing tours on the science of what is going on there in the countryside. And then on the other side of it, you have Eco Adventure, Harrison's Cave Eco Adventure Park, for example. Then you have Mount Gay, diversifying what ingredients that they're using in terms of the process that they're doing it as well. So you have all of this ongoing. You also have upgrades coming from the ice cream producers as well. So all of this action is happening. What I would say is that it can't happen overnight. We need to do multiple nights. So yes, there is some kind of patience, but there's always research, as well as how quickly we can implement things It may not always be overnight. It might not be 1 year or 2 years, but there is ongoing work amongst our product offering.
Okay, we have a caller on the line. Good evening to you. Go right ahead with your question.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go right ahead.
Okay.
Good night.
No, I am Art Edwards from the Caribbean Wax Museum, and I was just refused funding from the TDC. Now, how I see diversification is attracting different types of tourists because you have something that is particularly unique. And I thought that this Caribbean Wax offering, which is the only one of the world, in the entire world of its kind, and yes, it is a Caribbean project, would be something that would be a shoe-in for the likes of tourism development. But I was given the impression that you don't really get behind development projects. You haven't done that for the past 10 years and stuff. But now I'm hearing that you've actually gone behind someone that's making film. And I appreciate that very much because that too is diversification. But why him and not me? I've invited your executive officer to visit us shortly, but that doesn't deter from the fact that we were actually refused by you guys. And we actually have an event coming up at the end of this month where the 1998 Miss Universe will be flying to Barbados to be honored by us, as well as the Mighty Chalk Dust, who is not doing very well. Hopefully he recovers by that. He would say getting up on the plane, he coming here because of this particular thing, as well as RAS. And this is what we mean to these people overseas. I cannot understand. We mean more to people. We meant more to Mighty Sparrow. We meant more to David Rudder. We mean more to people overseas than we mean to people here in Barbados, which includes you. And that is somebody that do not understand. Can you explain that to me?
Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Thompson.
Yeah, hi Art, how are you doing? Obviously, you don't sound too good. You sound a little bit upset, but I can't give you the details. I can't give you the details of that because how projects work is that we have a board of directors, and then we have what we call a project assessment committee. So what happens is that first of all, it comes through the office of the executive officer. Then that goes to the project assessment committee, and then based on what they say, then that comes up to the board. So when you mention that, to be honest with you, I don't know the details of why the project may have been refused. I don't know if it's a timing issue. I can't speak to that directly. But what I can do is to tell you that I will check into it and get back to you and have a discussion with you and see what the issue is. We do product. We do heads and beds. I don't know if that is the area that needs some particular enhancement, but I can promise you that I'll do that.
Okay, let me just throw this one here to you, Mr. Thompson. Suppose I wanted to produce a tourism attraction for children, strictly for children. They come to my farm, they get involved in doing some reaping, then we do a little cooking session of things Barbadian, and then they have a tasting session. Would you all be willing to help fund something like that?
Not on the face of it, because we are focused on heads and beds. So we want to do the marketing overseas that brings persons into Barbados to stay in the hotels and spend the money on the ground in Barbados. Yes, we do product enhancement, but it's generally product enhancement for the good of all. So let's say, for instance, we got involved in film, right? We got involved in film because we're seeing that as an area where the level of competency in terms of what we have to offer in terms of support has risen to a level where now there are people coming in and shooting episodes and series here. And that's why we got involved. We realized that there's a component of it where people come in, they stay in the hotels, they use they employ people here, and they spend money on the ground.
Not only do they stay here, but then they go back on shows and they talk about what it was like in Barbados, eating fish cutters at Cuz, and a whole lot of other things from the shows that have been here. I think Outer Banks comes to mind. We have another call.
Hi, good night.
Good night to you. Go right ahead.
Okay. It was mentioned that Barbados is a mature tourist destination. And my issue is that where a particular product or service or whatever is in a mature state, the marketing strategy has to reflect the fact that after many years of involvement, there might be a need for adjustment. We are in an era where increasingly more recent tourist attractions are challenging and competing against Barbados. So one of my suggestions would be that we need to look closely at something called market segmentation to see precisely which type of tourists we would like to attract, especially since increasingly more and more tourists are proven to be price sensitive and are not involved in heavy spending, which means, of course, that we have to be careful to watch how we contrast and compare occupancy with spend. We need to spend. Now, linkages were mentioned earlier in the program. As you know, some of the linkages that people will have in mind would be agriculture and certainly manufacturing. Agriculture is itself subject to seasonalities, but one of the beautiful things about manufacturing is that manufacturing generally is not as prone to seasonalities as other sectors. I would want to see our tourism attract more manufacturing activities into the tourist business, especially since a lot of tourists themselves are attracted to items manufactured here. So a powerful potential linkage is with manufacturing, even more so than with agriculture. But finally, we have to bear in mind that tourism represents a challenge not just to keep it as an invisible export brand foreign exchange. It represents a challenge for us to look at the dynamics of the international world, the types of dynamics that can pose threats to our tourist industry, and we need to gird ourselves in a way where we face the future with some confidence. But one critical thing, of course, is look at where we came from and where we are at now, and to embrace ideas and policies to bear in mind that with limited resources, limited attractions, and the fact that to some tourists we are an aged destination, we have to find ways and means around it. And of course, we have to look at something called synergies with other areas of the economy. But best of luck to Ms. Burke, best of luck to Mr. Forde, best of luck to Conrad Thompson. Bye-bye. Thank you.
You're welcome. Now, that's a lot to unpack there. We're going to take the break and come right back and start to deal with some of them. We'll be back in a bit. Well, gentlemen, our last caller gave a lot to unpack. Let's start at the beginning, the market segmentation. Is it what we want it to be?
Yeah, well, market segmentation really and truly is through the Barbados Tourism Marketing Inc., as well as the individual properties and restaurants and attractions and whatnot. Everyone does their own marketing as a destination that is really and truly BTMI. And from us doing work alongside them, either as hoteliers, people running attractions, or the BHT on a whole, I can say that they are diving into that, especially over in the source markets. Source markets being the US, Canada, the UK, also Caribbean and Latin America, Europe, and whatnot. So they have to obviously segment it. Some of the, when we were talking about diversifying, when you look at it, a person that comes here in summer, yes, they can pay it. Can they afford to pay it is two different things. However, do they travel for a different reason? Earlier, we were speaking about cruise. If you look at cruise, most people that go on cruises in summer, they tend to go to places that you can't go in winter. So they will go to Alaska, they will go to some parts of Europe and Asia as well, because in December, January, February, it's too cold or there's too much ice for you to cruise then. So that is where you have to look at the market, segment it, and say, okay, well, where do we target for the summer? What do we want them to come and do? Which is, as we mentioned, sports and heritage and culture and these different eco activities as well. Because then you will be able to diversify what time of the year you're targeting, what market and what segmentation and whatnot. And then you kind of apply it to that time of the year that fits best for not just the customers, but also for Barbados.
Right.
There are
Another.
But the rest.
Okay, another area that he looks at is the whole issue of attracting tourists who are price sensitive. Now, I have heard other players within the industry say to me in recent times that we are attracting a bit too much budget tourists. But who are any of us to tell someone not to save up all their money to see this place they've always been hearing about, and because they've saved for the accommodation, which I'm finding too is a lot of new what do we call them? B&Bs, yes, that the Airbnb market in Barbados is growing. I want to know if that might be a problem for your membership, either way. And they shop. We see them in our local supermarkets in the 3 weeks, whatever, that they're here. They manage to get around BIM. They know Chafet like the back of their hand. They get around, you know. But is it something for us to be cautionary toward, or is it something to encourage more? Because, as he said, we are a mature destination. We were accustomed getting a lot of high-end tourists. But we all know world economies have changed.
Mm-hmm. But we still get the high-end tourists, and it'd be funny that some of them actually like to come in summer as well too, because they don't want the competition to get the best suite or penthouse or whatever it is, or they can bring their entire 20 sets of friends and family and rent out. I remember one time seeing Mark Wahlberg was down at Lobster Live on the beach. He rented out a coconut vendor and snow cone vendor because all of his kids, his nephews, his nieces, all the family, they wanted to hang out. And that is something that we get here in Barbados, because we don't have the media chasing you down like if you're on South Beach, Miami, or California. Now, with regards to kind of being a mature destination, yes, that is true. And we do have the Airbnbs popping up, and that gives some revenue to some other segment of our product offering. But at the same time, you also get the budget friendly. But when you think of going across Europe for the summer, most of those are staying, they're taking Ryanair and Spanair and EasyJet, those budget low-cost airlines, or they're going on to the trains, or they're also staying at hostels. European hostels are like going to an apartment in North America. They're very nice and well put together. And they go about and they spend at small corner cafes, they go to restaurants, they do a hop-on, hop-off bus. And here in Barbados, what happens is, you go to a taxi or you take a bicycle. I'm sure many have seen the cyclists going through the Warrens area to try to get up into St. Thomas and whatnot. And those are the kind of individuals that people say are budget sensitive. But you know what? They want to go in the community. They want to experience what we as Barbadians experience on a day-to-day. So we can't turn our eyes and our backs to one type of tourist over the other, because those are the ones that actually do a lot of strong linkages to say, is this really made in Barbados? Ah, yes, it is. Then I want it. I want to go home. I want my daughter to see this. Or how can I get you to export it to me? And then you find ways to do that. So Those are the kind of linkages that you get when you have quote unquote a budget sensitive tourist, and they tend to come during the summer and the shoulder periods.
Okay, I want to come to you now, Mr. Thompson, on the issue of the manufacturing activities. I'm not sure if you have any members who might be in this sector, but you've been around business for a while. Do you think we need to be doing more, putting more local products outside of juices or water or whatever into the hands of the tourists?
I'm going to answer that, but let me just tap back to Art Edwards because we've been working overtime and I have an answer for him. His proposal came a bit late because I kind of thought that because when he said in May, we are a small organization. We meet once a month, and our PAT meets once a month, or project assessment committee, and then it goes to the board. And I'm told basically it was just a bit late, and especially if you want to do marketing from overseas, you have to have a lead time to get people to come here. So it's not to say that we don't think that the project was one worthwhile looking at, not worthwhile looking at, but the timing of it was such that it would have been too late for our project assessment committee to meet. So because you mentioned manufacturing, so in terms of manufacturing, I do know that when the new Hilton was reopened, that there were deals made with the manufacturing sector to do a lot of the furniture for it. I remember quite some time ago. That was a very specific thing, and the government of the day reached out to the manufacturing sector to see how they could provide furniture for the Hilton. I don't know if it's happened in other areas, but we really haven't had a lot of new bill since then. We're now beginning to get a new bill. I do not know what's happening with Wyndham. I can't speak to that. But that is certainly one area that we could certainly look at, furniture, for instance. Now, numbers, maybe, in terms of production, let's say, for instance, if you got a 400-room hotel and you got so many beds and so forth, who knows? But basically, maybe that's something that could be looked at. But that also has to be taken in context of new materials and everything that people are looking at, sustainability, all this sort of thing. So that's the only thing I can think of off the top of my head, let's say, in terms of manufacturing.
Okay, I have a caller. Good evening to you.
Hi, good evening, Wendy. How are you?
I am well. Go right ahead with your question.
Good. My question is following on from a previous caller who said that we have a mature tourism product. And what I found is a lot of our tourism plant, is dated. It looks dated. And we are asking tourists to pay a top dollar for this dated hotel plant. Now we have, in the region, because of natural disasters and other things, our competitors have been forced to update their built assets. So there's newer plants throughout the region. But we have persons coming here paying top dollar for plant that, quite honestly, sometimes I'm embarrassed to actually go to, because when I see how old and decrepit almost it looks. What are we doing to update our built assets in the tourism industry?
Okay, so I'll take that. I'll take that one. There are a couple of things. When we look at our competitors in the industry, as we know, through the 90s into the early 2000s, Barbados was the leader in terms of development in the Caribbean. If you look at the amount of hotels or restaurants that we have on island versus any other island, only the very large ones can really compete. Places like Jamaica, Dominican Republic, and whatnot. Outside of that, that then means those other islands, the Dominicas, the St. Lucia, Grenada, and whatnot, they have the opportunity to do what we did in the 90s and early 2000s, is develop brand new. That saying that, we do have some properties that are going through phases of redevelopment. Going through COVID period, obviously there were different programs that the government put on to assist these properties, and ideally you had to either upgrade or bring back staff. The common good, if you go to any Christmas awards and you have an owner, if you go there, the owner's relationship with their staff is so passionate. I was just at the Mango Bay group, and Mr. Peter Odell, he and his family have done so much with their staff that it brought him to tears, telling me the story of his decision with regards to bringing back the staff and in order to keep them employed coming out of COVID. What people believe is that a hotel is only making revenue and then profit, but in return, you really and truly have a lot of expenses as well. And that same group has now added a beach club right next to Mango Bay Group. You also have the Elegant properties, which are now Marriott. All 7 of them over the next 1 to 2 years, they're upgrading. The Hilton has just done great work as well with the Charles Fort, the UNESCO World Heritage. Harrison's Cave has now expanded. Most of us have grown up just going on a tram, but now you have zipline, you have rum tasting, all of these. As I mentioned earlier, Mount Gay, you have Savannah Hotel doing some upgrades. Other properties like the Crane have expanded as well. Continuous development, Crane has actually been going over the last 20 years. So there is opportunity for others to continue upgrade, but what we must give credit to is that a lot of the properties had to make that decision recently, where it is bring back in the staff and also upgrade as well. But
Okay.
like you building your house is going to be a year. It's going to be more than a year to do it. So it's continuous, and yes, they will continue doing it.
Now, one of the things coming up soon, Mr. Forde, is the Caribbean Hotel and Tourism Association's Marketplace, which is going to be here in just what? A few days? 2 days, actually? 2 days.
Starts tomorrow.
Yes. Now, what are we expecting out of CHTA?
Well, first of all, we have 800 delegates arriving for this event, and you have at least 45 of them are international media. So they will be showcasing the best of Barbados. What's the best? The people. You know, second best is what we offer in terms of our heritage, our culture, our food, etc. So all of those experiences, these delegates are going to see, and they're going to post, they're going to do blogs about, they're going to speak very well about Barbados. On top of that, they're also going to have a business travel forum that the main speaker is obviously the Prime Minister. And the Prime Minister has been championing about the same thing the last caller said. You know, how do we add more to our product? How do we diversify and upgrade? And she is going to lead the speech. And then there's 13 other individuals that will be talking as well. So there's a lot of business transactions going across the 2 days of the actual trade show. And as we were speaking earlier about manufacturing, there's also a marketplace which gives an opportunity for 800 plus individuals to see the offering. Today, when it was presented to us on the walkthrough, they actually have 2 stations there that are set up for the 26 different providers to showcase the soaps, the shampoos, all of these products that originally you would get in small bottles. They're now going on an eco way in the hotels of supplying it in large capacities, so that you reduce the wastage and you're also able to work better with local suppliers. But it gives those local suppliers the opportunity to now sell overseas as well and earn foreign exchange. So there is a lot of opportunity to promote what we do well here in Barbados to get the repeat tourists, but we're also showcasing our linkages of what our people can offer, apart from the events that we're also putting on as well.
Okay, now we're going to take a break here, and when we come back, we will take some looks at how we can keep the industry on the trajectory that we want it to be on. We'll be back in a moment. And welcome back to the People's Business. We're talking tourism. And we have a caller on the line before we get to wrap up our discussion. Go ahead with your question.
Yeah, good night, Wendy. How are you?
I am good.
Good. I would like to direct this question to Mr. Forde. Now, we have Barbadians in the diaspora. Are we encouraging Barbadians in the diaspora to spend their vacation, anniversaries, etc., with their American work colleagues in Barbados? For example, you hear Barbadians saying from New York they are spending their vacation in Cuba. Some are saying they're going to Jamaica. I feel that Barbadians should be encouraged with their colleagues to come to Barbados and spend, because we would need the foreign exchange. Secondly, we should try to promote health tourism. When I say health tourism, we have, again, a lot of Barbadians who are doctors and nurses, etc. And we should encourage those persons to come down here. So it took like health tourism. So I don't know if Mr. Forde can answer this question for me. We should encourage our people who are working in these sectors in the United States to come to Barbados and contribute in foreign exchange. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Go right ahead, Mr. Forde.
No problem. Thank you very much for the question. Just this morning, I actually was speaking to a friend. She's based in Canada, but she has guests coming in, 60 or so coming in for her wedding. So that is the third one for the year, actually, and they're bringing them back from North America for their wedding. So that is one example there. So the work is being done, and for example, you see in the U.S., he is one person, the U.S. director, that is trying to build more linkages in the U.S. in regards to working with the diaspora. And if you take a look, a few years ago, we actually had a nurses conference that was headed up a lady, I can't remember her last name, it was Cicely something, I can't remember, I think it's Walcott. But she pretty much brought that conference back here, as you said, work colleagues, and it was hosted there at the Hilton Barbados Resort. And she also had done her birthday celebrations as well too. So there is work ongoing. Sometimes it's not seen because it's not promoted publicly across the media and whatnot, but the incentive works, things that we call it MICE, right? And when you look at that, you have the meetings, the incentives, conferences, events, etc. All of these activities are geared towards bringing groups in from the different source markets to come and enjoy. Now, when that is done, not every single one is going to go to our tourism entities and to promote it publicly. Some of it contract directly with the hotels, the attractions and restaurants. And that is a key area for business that we can continue to grow and build out. And it is a huge opportunity for Barbados.
Okay, we have another caller. Good evening to you. Good evening. Go right ahead.
Hello, I'm just going to turn my television down. Hello, it's down now. Okay, two things. Bridgetown. I am very proud of the city of Bridgetown, and I would like, with the Bridgetown initiative and this whole focus on Bridgetown, that we perhaps discuss what we can do with it to make it somewhere that the new republic can be really proud of. Perhaps you could throw that out for discussion. And the other thing I wanted to ask about was, will the attractions be able to see the visitors who are coming to the island for the conference? Those are my two questions. Great program, and keep doing it. Thank you.
Thank you as well. Mark, I'm going to allow you to take the part about Bridgetown because I know the TDC has done some work in and around the city. What more can we do to build on that history and heritage of Bridgetown?
Right. Well, a city shouldn't really be sleeping at night. And so we know Bridgetown needs a lot of work for that to change. There is a planned project around the Pearhead, Carlisle Bay area. I think that's a much needed project, I should say, which would have, mixed use environment, retail, commercial, living, apartments, that sort of thing. There's the Hyatt Hotel planned. And with that, you got to plan a number of things that would help. When people come there, they want to be able to go to, museums, art shows, movies, etc. Because right now, Bridgetown, we know it, is really living by virtue of the fact it's duty free, and that's the focus. But we really need to have projects like that and that type of development happening in order to really wake Bridgetown up. To get it back to how it was when boats coming across the Atlantic used to make that first stop.
Okay. And the second part of the question goes to you, Mr. Forde.
So I'll first go back to the previous caller. Health and wellness is a very important segment of the tourism industry, and it is one that some of the properties are starting to diversify. You have O2, for example, they've put in a very, very nice spa, but it goes even further than that. How do you make those linkages with the doctors, the people that are working in special forms of medicine, and how are you working with persons dealing with the yoga and the different forms, those art forms as well. So it is an area that we are building out and growing, and it is a good suggestion. In regards to all of the buyers and suppliers that are coming from the tourism industry for the conference, we actually have a buyers program amongst our membership base through the BHTA, where up to 30 individuals are actually going around to at least four tours per day on the 8th as well as on the 12th. They were able to choose, so they can actually go to both if they wanted, and that was done across our attraction base. And then BTMI, they were responsible for the media program. So what they do is they take those 43 to 45 international media across the island, and they see a lot of what Barbados is built out for, not just the attraction aspect, but actually seeing what the communities are like, trying different food, trying different drinks, seeing where all the build out towards the eco and the adventure aspect is. So it's much more than just us sitting down at a table and discussing what hotels and whatnot is going on and attractions. We're actually letting the delegates try all of the activities, and we have special rates for the other 700 delegates to go out and try. And then we also have a dine around program where they can go to some of the restaurants and that bought into the program, and they can actually try the different menus around CHTA Marketplace.
Okay, and we don't have a lot of time. So in terms of what state we want to keep the industry in, one quick parting shot from you, Mr. Thompson, and one short one from you, Mr. Forde.
Well, in order to enhance the product and have, it's going to take some money. So beyond, and not only just money, but also all of us have to be marching all in terms of, in one direction. So it's going to have to be a collaborative effort. So we need to get together from a policy perspective, from the private sector, from the BTMI's perspective, the Hotel and Tourism Association. We need to get together and speak with one voice about how we want to take this product forward, so that we can always speak with one voice.
Okay, and you only actually have 10 seconds, Mr. Forde.
Well, I agree with Mark in regards to that. How do the players in the industry work together, as well as the locals, to understand that we need to make those linkages stronger and expand, and also working with the media as well as we push a positive note about our beloved, beautiful Barbados and the tourism industry.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. I had Mark Thompson, the chair of the TDC, and Mr. Ryan Forde, who's the CEO of the BHTA. You have been watching The People's Business. We were talking tourism, the state of the industry. Thanks to our callers. Do enjoy the rest of your Sunday.